The power of silence after a breakup. What remains unspoken often resonates the most in someone's mind. Friends, take a moment to listen, as today we are exploring a powerful strategy that you may have been neglecting. This strategy isn't found in grand displays of emotion or passionate messages, rather, it resides in those serene instances when you opt for silence. When you cease the pursuit of answers, stop seeking closure, and refrain from reacting to every minor offense, something remarkable occurs. You unlock a strength so significant that it lingers in their thoughts long after you have departed. Let's be honest, everyone. When a person you once cared for repeatedly dismisses you, whether by ghosting, ignoring your calls, or, even worse, betraying your trust, it feels like a severe blow. Your heart races, your mind is overwhelmed with questions, and you instinctively reach for your phone, yearning for some form of acknowledgement. But here's the surprising part, that acknowledgement is precisely what they desire. They thrive on your pain and frustration, and every message you send asking, "Why did you do this?" only serves to inflate their ego. So, what if I suggested that the most courageous action you can take is to embrace silence, not as a sign of weakness, but as a demonstration of wisdom? Imagine this scenario: you find yourself in an expansive library, with towering shelves all around you and the musty aroma of old books filling the air. Suddenly, someone drops a handful of marbles onto the floor. The noise reverberates throughout the hall, capturing the attention of everyone present. This is the impact of your silence. It can create a powerful ripple effect that draws attention in ways you might not expect. Consider your reaction as a loud, jarring sound that cannot be overlooked. Now, picture a different scenario: you quietly close the library doors, switch off the lights, and simply walk away. The ensuing silence is eerie. It hangs in the air, creating a sense of confusion and discomfort. Suddenly, this lack of sound transforms into the focal point of the situation. Why does this silence gnaw at them? Why do they find themselves spiraling into thoughts when they hear nothing from you? The answer lies in the fact that, deep within, they are forced to confront their own decisions. They grapple with memories of your smile, the joy of your laughter, and the warmth you once provided. In this overwhelming quiet, they are left alone with their feelings of regret. Regret that cannot be escaped by merely scrolling through their phones. And that, my friends, is where the true transformation occurs. However, let me clarify, this is not about seeking petty revenge. It is about reclaiming your inner peace in such a profound way that it resonates within their silence. When you cease to react, you stop giving them your power on a silver platter. You become invulnerable. Imagine yourself as a lighthouse during a fierce storm. The wind howls, and the waves crash violently against the rocks, but you remain steady, your light cutting through the chaos. No matter how wild the storm becomes, it can't dim the beacon that guides lost ships to safety. This imagery serves as a powerful metaphor for breaking free from one of society's most pervasive myths, the idea that expressing emotions is a sign of weakness. On the contrary, true strength often manifests in calmness and composure. As Marcus Aurelius wisely put it, you have control over your mind, not external circumstances. When you fully grasp this concept, something incredible happens. You begin to see setbacks not as failures but as opportunities for growth. Pain transforms into fuel for resilience, and moments of uncertainty become chances to cultivate inner peace. Instead of reacting impulsively with frantic messages or restless nights spent worrying, you develop an unshakable sense of confidence and serenity. So, here's where you start: embrace silence. Let your decision to step back speak louder than any words ever could. Observe as others scramble to figure out what you're thinking, searching for some reaction only to encounter stillness. Believe me, your presence will resonate far more profoundly in these quiet moments than it ever did when you responded emotionally. Each time they pause, each moment they question, "What's going on? Why isn't she saying anything?" That's a win for you. It shows that you hold the reins, even without uttering a single word. Now, I encourage you to take action. Write this phrase in the comments below: "Silence is my power." Say it boldly, because recognizing the value of silence is the first step toward reclaiming your personal authority. Let your voice resonate with confidence. Then press that like button if you're ready to embrace your strength and subscribe to join our community of warriors who've learned to turn quiet into their most powerful roar. Stay with me because next we're diving deep into how to harness this silence to rewrite your story and theirs. Affirmation for today. Silence is my power. Let it feel real in your heart and watch how it echoes in theirs. First, the space you leave behind becomes their reflection. They thought you vanished. What they didn't realize is that you left behind a mirror. My friends, take a slow breath and let that sink in. Because what we're about to uncover will challenge the narrative they've been told about walking away. They said your silence would fade, that disappearing would make them move on, that if you weren't there to remind them of your worth, they'd erase you from their memories. But here's the truth. They lied. Not just to you, but to themselves. Because silence doesn't disappear, it echoes. And the void you leave behind becomes something far more terrifying than any confrontation. It transforms into a reflection. Picture a space that was once alive with your spirit, your words, your joy, your essence. You illuminated it like a beautiful song. Each statement you offered became a musical tone. Every look exchanged created a beat. Then suddenly, you departed. You exited. And immediately the soundtrack ceased. Initially, they experience what feels like tranquility, breathing room, independence, unburdening. However, gradually that quietness begins to speak, murmuring things they'd prefer not to acknowledge. Why does this happen? Because stillness rarely remains truly still for extended periods. It gradually fills with their internal dialogue, their personal remorse, their recollections. The emptiness evolves into an environment where your non-attendance resonates more powerfully than your company ever managed to. Now, without your vitality to divert their attention, they remain by themselves confronting the reality of their actions, their behavior toward you, and their role in your narrative. That phenomenon, dear readers, is what ultimately drives them to distraction. You see, many individuals believe that by severing connections, disappearing without explanation, or dismissing you, they're eliminating your influence from their existence. In truth, however, they've merely cleared away distractions, allowing you to occupy the central focus of their thoughts. Every quiet space you leave behind isn't simply emptiness. It serves as a mirror, reflecting back their true selves. It's a canvas they now gaze upon, watching all the ways you failed them play on repeat. You're not there to argue anymore. You're not there to give them closure. And when there's no final scene, their mind replays the last act over and over again, trying to make sense of something that no longer belongs to them. Now, here's where it gets real. Many of you fear being forgotten. You worry that if you don't respond, don't text, or don't chase, they'll simply move on without a second thought. But let me ask you, did they move on when you begged for answers? Did they change when you reacted in pain, or did they grow more distant while feeding off the emotional chaos you caused? The lie is that your silence makes you invisible. The truth is that your silence makes them face themselves. And that's the one thing they were never prepared to do. Let's go deeper. Think about when a song stops playing. At first, it's just silence. But then you start to hear the echo of what was once there. The lyrics, the beat, the feeling it left behind. That's what your absence does. It's like a familiar song that stopped mid-verse. The unfinished melody of uncertainty lingers, gnawing at their conscience because the silence now demands introspection. What are they thinking? Why haven't they reached out? Did I mess this up? Are they done for good? These questions don't fade away, instead, they multiply and intensify. This is why your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their true selves. When you're gone, they can't project their emotions onto you anymore. They can't blame you, argue with you, or manipulate your feelings. The mask they've been wearing falls off, and what's left staring back at them is their own selfishness, their lies, their confusion, and that's what ultimately breaks them. It's essential to understand that choosing silence is not an easy feat. It requires discipline, restraint, and the courage to stand in your own truth, even when everything in you wants to speak, explain, and defend yourself. You'll have moments where your hands itch to type that message and your mind will scream, say something, get closure. But I want you to remember that your silence is not a sign of weakness, it's a symbol of strength, a crown that you wear with dignity. Silence is not about being passive, it's about being in control, taking a step back, and allowing the other person to confront their own emotions and actions. By choosing silence, you're not giving in, you're taking a stand, and that's what makes This is about embracing strength and reclaiming your power. As the wise Marcus Aurelius once remarked, true victory lies in refusing to mirror the actions of those who wrong you. In this context, the adversary isn't a person, but the turmoil they've unleashed, the emotional whirlwind, the manipulative games, the rejection, and the confusion they've left in their wake. When you choose silence, you step off that chaotic ride. You declare, this chapter closes, not with anger, but with my decision to embrace peace. And that, my friends, is the moment everything shifts. It's when they begin to question where your pain has gone, why their actions no longer provoke a reaction, and why they no longer hold a central role in your narrative. While they grapple with the silence, trying to decipher your newfound calm, you're quietly rebuilding, healing, and growing, much like a tree extending its roots deep into the earth, unseen yet profoundly powerful. So, here's your task, write this in the comments: I embrace silence, not as a tool for punishment, but as a revelation. Speak it, feel it, and believe it. Let it serve as a testament that your silence isn't a weapon of retaliation, it's a mirror reflecting the unvarnished truth. And when they finally gaze into that mirror, they'll confront everything they've been avoiding. If this message resonates with you, if you're weary of being misunderstood, overlooked, or emotionally drained, give this a like. Subscribe to this channel, where we rise from adversity, not with fury, but with a quiet, unshakable strength, the kind that speaks volumes even in silence. Stay with me, my friends, because in the next segment, we'll delve into why your silence doesn't just confuse them, it shatters the illusion of control they thought they held. What occurs when you cease the pursuit? What transpires when you stop responding? The revelation may astonish you, and it could very well liberate you. Firstly, you are no longer in pursuit, and that is precisely what disturbs them. They were able to cope with your anger and your heartbreak. However, what they were never equipped to handle was your silence. Friends, let's delve into the unexpected transformation they didn't anticipate. You were once the one who chased, weren't you? Let's be candid about it. You reached out to them frequently. You provided lengthy explanations. You made excuses for their lack of communication, rationalized their erratic behavior, and exerted tremendous effort to be sufficient for someone who failed to recognize your worth. You offered them countless opportunities to amend their actions, to rise to the occasion, to remain present in your life. Yet, even when they didn't, you still allowed them to witness your suffering up close. But then, a significant change occurred. Something truly transformative. You stopped pursuing them. And let me assure you, that is the moment when everything began to unravel for them. Here's an important point to consider. Often, people don't discuss those who thrive on being pursued. They mistake your focus for their value. As long as you were reaching out, texting, calling, begging for responses, their ego was satisfied. It didn't matter if they genuinely cared or if they were even worthy of your attention. What was crucial was the game. In this game, you were always the one in pursuit, while they leisurely distanced themselves. But now, you've stopped running. You're no longer glued to their social media updates or sending those late-night messages. And guess what? They notice. They notice profoundly because your absence isn't just silent, it's chilling. It's disorienting. It's akin to unplugging a device they didn't realize they relied on. Let me dispel a myth right now. They weren't strong because they didn't show a reaction. They were simply comfortable. To elaborate, imagine a scenario where someone is used to having others chase after them. This dynamic can create a false sense of self-worth based on others' attention rather than genuine care or connection. When you stop participating in this cycle, it can be jarring for them, revealing their dependency on your actions to feel validated. This shift can be a powerful step towards reclaiming your own energy and focusing on what truly matters for your well-being. They once held the reins of the situation, but now, without uttering a single word, you have completely changed the dynamics. You are no longer striving to regain their affection or vying for a place in their life. Instead, you have chosen to retreat into a state of calmness and introspection. This shift has left them grappling with the disconcerting quiet that now surrounds them. Picture this scenario: you were previously the sun in their universe, radiant, warm, and dependable. Your presence was a source of vitality, comfort, and empowerment for them. However, you have now transformed into a frigid winter sky, silent, cold, and distant, and they find themselves struggling to cope with this chill. This discomfort does not stem from any wrongdoing on your part, rather, it arises from their ego, which had come to depend on your warmth as if it were a crutch. They misinterpreted your brightness as a sign of vulnerability. In reality, it was your affection, your focus, and your pursuit that initially made them feel significant. Now that these elements have vanished, they are left to face the cold alone. It's important to understand that while the ego can withstand animosity, indeed, it often thrives on it, because hate still garners attention and energy, it cannot cope with the absence of warmth and connection. However, the ego tends to disintegrate when faced with indifference. When you cease to respond, the individual not only loses their grip on the situation but also begins to lose their sense of self. This is because a significant part of their identity was shaped by the emotions you evoked in them. You served as the reflection in which they admired their own image. Now that this reflection is absent, can you imagine the impact it has on them? It rattles their very core and shatters their facade of superiority. Suddenly, they find themselves filled with uncertainty. They begin to ponder questions like, have they truly moved on? Do they genuinely not care? Have I lost them for good? This state of mind is more than mere confusion, it resembles a form of psychological warfare. But let's be clear about one thing: this isn't about seeking revenge. Your choice to remain silent isn't a tactic to manipulate them, rather, it stems from a newfound recognition of your own value. You have stepped away from the conflict, not because you were defeated, but because you came to understand that the battle was not worth sacrificing your own spirit. You've moved beyond needing to prove yourself, and that transition, my friend, is true empowerment. When you stop pursuing validation from those who've shown no investment in your worth, you cease pouring energy into relationships that drain more than they sustain. No more offering compassion to emotional black holes that never return it. No more performing for an audience that's already left the theater. Now you move through life as your own lead dancer, choreographing steps that honor your values. This self-possessed grace is what truly unsettles those who took you for granted. The person they remember, the one they believed would always be available for their convenience, has transformed into an enigma. Your quiet confidence becomes a mirror showing them what they've lost. Through this lens of self-assurance, your composed presence communicates more powerfully than any desperate plea ever could. Here's your action step: claim this truth in the comments below: my calm speaks volumes where my struggles once shouted. Let this declaration remind you that strategic silence isn't emptiness. It's purposeful restraint. It's the quiet before transformative change. It's hurricane-force winds contained within perfect composure. If these words resonate with your journey towards self-empowerment, if you feel the balance shifting in your relationships, join our community of growth-minded individuals by liking this message, subscribing for more insights, and staying connected through life's transitions. Now, let's delve even further into the implications of realizing that they can no longer dictate the narrative. When your silence begins to reshape the story, and they find themselves excluded from the conclusion, this marks just the start of a significant transformation, my friends. You have ceased the pursuit, and it is now time for you to elevate yourself. The third point to consider is that they have lost their grip on the narrative. They were engaged in a strategic game, akin to chess, with your emotions, while simultaneously controlling the storyline from both perspectives. However, you have taken a stand and overturned the chessboard. Now, they are left alone, conversing with themselves in a void. Let's explore this concept further. We have discussed the effects of your decision to stop chasing after them, but there exists another dimension that many fail to grasp. When you choose to remain silent, they do not merely lose your physical presence, they also forfeit control over the narrative itself. This loss can drive them to a state of frustration that no argument or confrontation ever could. Let's be honest here. They were accustomed to being the ones who narrated your suffering. They dictated when you expressed your feelings, when you shed tears, when you reached out for connection, and when you offered apologies. They played the role of the director, orchestrating the plot twists, scripting both your role and theirs. You were perpetually in a state of reaction, always responding, always providing them with material to bolster their ego. But now, you have severed their access to the stage. The spotlight has faded away. The crowd has dispersed, leaving the performer standing alone on stage, still going through their lines, words that no longer hold significance. When you expressed yourself, whether out of love or frustration, you gave others the ability to distort your message, manipulate your tone of voice, cast you as a victim, or shape your image however they wished. But now, with your voice silenced, they are faced with only one unsettling thing: silence itself. And silence offers nothing for them to manipulate or spin around. Instead, it triggers a different kind of psychological reaction. The quiet leads to doubt and curiosity. And curiosity can be a dangerous game when control was the only power someone ever held. They start asking themselves, why am I not hearing from them? Are they truly happy now? Did they find someone new? These questions don't end, they only multiply. Silence transforms into a mysterious void, and mystery is the breeding ground for obsession. People like this often depend heavily on emotional access. Your reactions, especially the painful ones, give them a sense of importance. As long as they know how you feel, they feel relevant and in control of the narrative. But when you stop speaking, that access is cut off. They become outsiders in your story, uncertain of what role, if any, they played. Essentially, when you remain silent, you remove their ability to influence or understand your feelings, and that leaves them grasping in the dark, unsure of where they stand. Consider this scenario: you're engrossed in a novel, believing it to be your own creation. Every chapter, every surprise turn of events, and every conclusion seems familiar, until abruptly, the pages are blank. Suddenly, the pen is no longer in your control, and you've become a mere character, worse still, a neglected one. This is akin to choosing silence. It's not merely reclaiming your narrative, but seizing back the tool to write it. You begin to craft your story anew, free from their influence, edits, and manipulations. Let me share a potent insight: in the game of power, the individual who departs quietly often emerges victorious. Their triumph isn't due to shouting the loudest, but rather, by withdrawing from the contest entirely. I'm aware of the potential counterargument. But if I remain silent, they won't grasp my emotions. They'll remain oblivious to their actions. They won't evolve. Here lies the stark reality: they were cognizant of your feelings from the moment they began to undervalue you. They were aware each time you shed tears, exerted effort, and chose to stay, yet they failed to alter their behavior. So, why offer them another soliloquy at this juncture? In essence, when you opt for silence, you're not only reclaiming your story but also asserting your autonomy. It's akin to stepping out of the shadows and into the light, where your narrative is yours alone to shape. Remember, sometimes the most potent action is not what we say, but what we choose not to say. Silence should not be mistaken for surrender, rather, it represents a significant advancement in your personal journey. It is not about concealing your authentic self; instead, it signifies a decision to withhold your truth from those who fail to appreciate it. Your silence is a precious asset, embodying both strength and strategy. It marks a pivotal moment when the narrative begins to change, and for the first time, you find yourself in the driver's seat of your own story. Imagine this scenario: you walk out of a gathering, and as soon as you leave, the atmosphere shifts. People start to murmur among themselves. This is the power of your silence. By stepping away, you have removed yourself from their narrative, leaving them with a room full of unanswered questions. Unlike before, you are no longer present to clarify or defend your words. They can no longer twist your statements because you have chosen not to share them. What remains for them is a confrontation with their own thoughts and feelings, and believe me, they may not be pleased with what they discover. They had hoped to manipulate the storyline, thinking that by ignoring you, placing blame, or adopting a victim mentality, they could reshape the outcome to suit their desires. But now that you have distanced yourself, their plans have unraveled. The sense of control they believed they possessed is gradually slipping away, much like grains of sand through one's fingers. So, I encourage you to take a moment and express this in the comments below. I write my story with silence. Speak it boldly and clearly. Silence is no longer a place for you to hide, rather, it has transformed into an act of defiance. It signifies your declaration that you do not owe anyone your voice, instead, you owe it to yourself to find peace. If this resonates with you on a profound level, especially if you've ever felt confined by someone else's narrative, then please give that like button a tap and consider subscribing. Stick around, as we are about to delve into a surprising revelation they never anticipated from you following your silence, a sense of calm. They expected you to crumble under pressure, but instead, you are quietly, powerfully, and beautifully reconstructing your life. Believe me, they will be utterly taken aback by your transformation. To put it simply, they anticipated tears, not tranquility. They ignited a spark expecting a blaze, but you responded like water. My friends, that single statement encapsulates everything. They were bracing themselves for an explosion. They were fully prepared for the usual display of desperation, the pleading, the shouting, the general upheaval. They knew precisely which triggers to activate to elicit a response. They anticipated that you would shatter like delicate porcelain when subjected to intense pressure. However, you surprised them by becoming utterly calm, composed, quiet, and serene. And it was this unexpected reaction that truly disconcerted them. You see, when an individual is aware that they have wronged you, when they know they have let you down, been disloyal, or shown you disrespect, they mentally gear up for a confrontation. They formulate their justifications, practice their apologies, and steel themselves for your emotional outburst. They expect to witness your emotional collapse because, in their minds, that would signify that they still hold sway over you, that you are still emotionally invested, and that your feelings are still dictated by their actions. But what is their reaction when the anticipated emotional tempest never materializes? That's when a different kind of fear takes root. That's when the absence of a response becomes deeply unsettling because silence denies them a part to enact. There's no dispute to be won, no guilt to exploit, no drama to orchestrate. Instead, they are left to confront the reality of their own actions, without any distractions. Their behavior is laid bare, unopposed, and revealed for what it is. And this kind of tranquility, this kind of inner peace, acts as a mirror, forcing them to see a reflection they were entirely unprepared to confront. To illustrate this concept further, let's use an analogy. Picture them striking a match and casually tossing it in your direction, fully expecting you to ignite in a fit of emotion. Perhaps they envisioned you breaking down in tears, exploding in anger, posting vague, hint-laden messages online, or desperately seeking explanations from them. But you didn't react as they predicted. You remained in control, and that threw them completely off balance. Instead of reacting impulsively, you chose to absorb the intensity of the situation. You quelled the flames of conflict with your serene presence. The instant they witnessed your unwavering composure, your ability to remain untouched, unaffected, and unshaken, that's when their sense of superiority began to diminish. Why does this happen? Because your tranquility is not merely a lack of noise, it is a calculated approach. It embodies discipline and a profound mastery over your emotions. This level of self-control is, in fact, a powerful statement. Now, consider this: how often in the past have you responded in ways that they anticipated? How many disputes did you enter with the hope of making a difference, only to leave feeling exhausted, embarrassed, and defeated? How frequently did you find yourself in tears before someone who seemed indifferent? Yet, on that one occasion when you chose not to react, when you quietly walked away, prioritizing your peace over the need to validate your hurt, that was the moment they began to unravel. Isn't that fascinating? Because here's a truth that often goes unspoken: people don't truly miss you when you're loud and expressive. They long for you when you choose silence. They yearn for the version of you that consistently showed up, even when they didn't earn it. And it is in your calmness that the reality of your absence truly strikes them. It seems like you've reached a point where you're no longer putting in the effort. You're not battling for their attention, nor are you engaging in conflicts with them. You've stepped away from the chaos, removed your boxing gloves, and preserved your heart and soul intact. Allow me to remind you of a profound statement made by Marcus Aurelius: the nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. This is precisely what you have accomplished. By choosing not to participate in their chaotic games, you have embraced your own inner strength. You are no longer a marionette swaying to the rhythm of their emotional turmoil. Instead, you have taken the reins of your own life. Your tranquility conveys a powerful message. They are puzzled by your composure, they cannot decipher it, nor can they manipulate it to their advantage. So, what is their response? They amplify their noise. They increase their social media posts, act as if they are unaffected, and pretend to have moved on. Yet, all of this is merely background noise. Imagine the sound of a mind in turmoil, desperately trying to comprehend a silence that was unexpected. You see, my friends, tranquility can be the most disconcerting reaction when chaos is anticipated. It's a powerful stance, cloaked in grace. It conveys the message: I recognize your actions, but I choose not to engage with them. This kind of emotional detachment and self-respect resonates more profoundly than any argument could ever achieve. So, let me share an important takeaway with you: opting for peace does not mean you sacrifice anything, rather, you gain everything. You reclaim your energy, your sense of self-worth, and your dignity. Meanwhile, those who thrive on chaos are left bewildered, questioning why their usual tactics no longer have an effect. I encourage you to express this sentiment in the comments: my calm confuses their chaos. Say it with confidence. Let it serve as a reminder that you are not obligated to expend your energy, raise your voice, or experience emotional turmoil for anyone else. What you truly owe is a commitment to your own peace. If this message resonates with you, if you've been maintaining your calm and wondering about its significance, know that it truly matters. If you find this valuable, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and stick around because next, we will delve into the impact of silence on their psyche, the mental cycle it ensnares them in, and how your quietness can become the most powerful voice in their thoughts. You have extinguished the flames of chaos. You have mastered the art of calm. Let's explore the fascinating phenomenon that occurs when the silence speaks volumes. In this scenario, we're talking about the fifth element, where the mind replays what it can't comprehend. Imagine, if you will, the experience of trying to sleep in a room with only the sound of a ticking clock. Initially, the tick-tock is subtle, but as time passes, it becomes increasingly loud and intrusive, almost driving one to distraction. This is akin to the silence you've imposed, which now resonates loudly in their thoughts. They believed walking away would bring them tranquility, that your silence would be the conclusion to a chapter. Little did they know, it was the prelude to a story they couldn't escape. You see, silence, when left unresolved, doesn't dissipate, it reverberates. The human mind is an incredible problem-solving mechanism, designed to tie up loose ends, conclude narratives, and alleviate tension. However, when you choose silence, when you depart without clarification, reaction, or resolution, their mind is left hanging, unsure of the story's conclusion. This gap, this missing link, becomes a gravitational pull, drawing them back repeatedly. Initially, they may think it's insignificant, a simple need for space. They might even hope for a reconciliation. But the mind, being the persistent problem solver it is, will continue to seek closure, and the silence will persist as a haunting reminder. As days turn into weeks, the silence becomes deafening, and suddenly, their mind transforms into an unexpected battlefield. They are tormented by your last words, meticulously analyzing every message, scrutinizing every glance, and replaying conversations that have long faded from your memory. Why does this happen? It's because they were left without closure. The human mind abhors unresolved issues. They didn't receive an apology. They didn't get that final text. They didn't experience the dramatic farewell that might have helped them reconcile with their own actions. Now, they're trapped in a cycle that you've long since escaped. Let me dispel a common misconception right here. They convinced themselves that you would return, that you would seek closure, that you would choose maturity and engage in a conversation to resolve things. Instead, you left them with something far more potent than words: silence. Now, they are the ones desperately trying to make sense of what transpired. They are the ones left with questions, not you. Here's a truth often overlooked: the person who departs without a word takes control of the narrative. They become the enigma. They become the question the other person cannot answer. As time goes on, your silence becomes increasingly unbearable. You're not present, but your absence is palpable everywhere. Imagine trying to fall asleep while a single clock ticks relentlessly in the background. At first, the ticking seems insignificant, a faint, ignorable presence. But as time drags on, that small sound swells into something overwhelming. Your thoughts begin to latch onto it, replaying the noise again and again until it's no longer just a sound in the room, it feels like it's echoing inside your own mind. At that point, there's no magic switch to silence it. That's what happens when you don't offer someone the emotional release they're seeking. You didn't allow them to paint themselves as the wronged party, nor did you linger to give them a chance to reshape the ending in their favor. Instead, you simply stopped engaging. Your sudden silence, your decision not to justify or explain, morphs into a mental puzzle they just can't solve. Here's the twist: perhaps in the past, this person labeled you as too sensitive, overly reactive, maybe even dramatic. Yet now, with you gone, they're the ones restlessly pacing back and forth, compulsively checking your social media, starting and erasing messages they'll never actually send. The very peace you chose, your calm withdrawal, has left their thoughts in disarray. It's important to understand that true peace isn't about silence or the lack of noise, it's about the absence of inner turmoil. When someone is at odds with their own actions, especially when they recognize they've made mistakes, the quiet can become unsettling, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths. So while they find themselves stuck in a repetitive cycle, desperately trying to figure out where things went wrong, you're moving forward, focusing on your own healing and growth. You're taking back control of your life. You're realizing that tranquility doesn't always come from a final dialogue. Sometimes, it's about making the choice to step away, leaving them hanging, without providing the closure they anticipated. This doesn't mean you're heartless, quite the contrary, it means you're wise. Not everyone is entitled to the comfort of a neat conclusion. Some individuals only comprehend their mistakes when they're faced with the void left by your departure. Therefore, let me guide you on what to do next. Jot down these words in the comments section. I require no justification. Their understanding will come from my silence. Allow this to be your mantra, your proclamation, your gentle reminder that silence isn't a void. It's a deliberate act. It's a present to yourself and an unforeseen repercussion for them. Should this resonate with your spirit, if you've ever felt the compulsion to clarify once more, but opted for serenity instead, press the like button and subscribe for more insightful revelations like this. Stick around because in our next discussion, we'll delve into the aspect of silence that terrifies them more than bewilderment. Your evolution. They assumed you'd crumble, but instead, you're quietly, tenaciously, and gracefully ascending. And the best part is, they have a ringside view, but no script to follow. Remember, your development in silence is their greatest fear. They remained unaware of your strength until you chose to wield it on your own terms. It's this realization that now lingers unsettlingly within them. It's not your quietness, nor even your absence, but rather the unexpected change, the evolution you underwent that caught them off guard. My friends, while they may have hoped you'd stay in the background, shadowed by pain or fixated on their every word, you were proving to be something far more formidable. Instead of dwelling on their updates or peeling apart their online personas, you were focused on something far more meaningful. You were stepping into the gym, cultivating inner calm, drawing new lines to protect your peace, and mastering the art of self-validation, learning to breathe without their approval. Now, you're a version of yourself they barely recognize. The truth is, their fear wasn't rooted in losing your attention, it was about what would happen once you stopped giving it to them. As long as you remained preoccupied with their world, they maintained a certain hold over your energy. But when you turned that energy toward yourself, creating real growth rather than feeding their drama, that's when their influence faded. That's when your quiet became a force. Imagine a seed lying deep within the earth. On the surface, it seems lifeless, silent and ignored. Yet beneath the soil, hidden from sight, powerful change is underway. There's pressure, resilience, and quiet cultivation taking place, all leading to transformation. Imagine a seed that's been buried deep beneath the ground, surrounded by layers of rejection, silence, and manipulation. Instead of withering away, it takes root and begins to grow, pushing steadily towards the light. By the time it finally emerges and blooms, it's too late for anyone to halt its progress. This is your story. You were buried under the weight of others' indifference and games, but you didn't crumble. You took root and grew into someone they can't categorize, can't influence, and can't manage. Here's the thing, they notice your growth, even if they don't admit it. They see it in your newfound confidence, in the calmness you exude, and in your lack of interest in their opinions. It frightens them that you're no longer waiting for their validation or explanations. The version of you that used to cry over their indifference is gone. What truly unnerves them is that you're not angry, you're calm and radiant. Your silent transformation is a form of revenge they can't dispute. So, here's what you need to keep in mind. You didn't grow in spite of their rejection, you grew because of it. You took the pain and turned the chaos into a quiet strength, and that strength into a plan. You've turned silence into a powerful strategy. Write this down, I grow in silence. It's a reminder of your journey and your resilience. Think of it like a tree that has weathered storms and grown stronger because of them. You've taken the noise and turned it into a quiet, unstoppable force. That's your superpower. I emerge quietly, making no fuss. This should be your personal statement. Let it baffle them, let it stir up feelings of regret within them, and let it cause them anxiety. Your development is not for their benefit, it's solely about evolving into the best version of yourself. If you sense this transformation, if you recognize that you are growing stronger while they anticipate your collapse, give this a thumbs up and follow along. We're about to explore what occurs when your quiet growth not only enhances you but also begins to weigh heavily on their minds. They might have thought they had silenced you, but in reality, you were just a seed waiting to sprout. Point number 7, even if they act otherwise, they will notice your absence. Their displays are not for the world to see, they are a distraction from the void left by your departure. Friends, let's debunk a common misconception that often misleads people post-breakup. The idea that indifference signifies healing, that their silence means they've moved forward, and that their calm demeanor indicates peace. The reality is quite different. Those who put on the best act are often the ones struggling the most internally. Now, let's discuss what truly happens when you choose silence. By going quiet, you're not just taking away your words, you're removing your influence, the constant flow of attention, affirmation, and presence that they once relied on. In that silence, a gap forms, a chilling, empty space where your warmth once thrived. Instead of confronting the significant emptiness that has opened up, they choose a different path entirely. They begin to fill that void with a flurry of loud, attention-grabbing activities. Suddenly, you observe them engaging in excessive behaviors, oversharing on social media, displaying exaggerated flirtatiousness, and posting photos where their smiles seem just a little too bright, images that loudly broadcast a message of everything is perfectly fine, while subtly, almost imperceptibly, whispering their true feeling, I genuinely miss you. They might be seen laughing louder than anyone else, throwing themselves into social events and parties with unusual intensity, constantly showcasing aspects of their life as if to prove they've somehow upgraded or moved on to something far better. However, at its core, this entire performance is carefully staged, a deliberate facade, a mask worn to conceal the underlying reality. Because even as they present this lively exterior to the world, deep down, their internal dialogue is still very much centered on you, as if they are conversing with your lingering presence, your ghost. To help illustrate this internal state, consider this powerful metaphor. Picture them at a vibrant party, completely surrounded by people, with the music pumping loudly and drinks flowing freely. Yet, within the confines of their own mind, there remains a quiet, empty seat right beside them. And who is mentally occupying that specific spot? It is you. Not the version of you who might have appeared vulnerable or sought answers during the difficult moments, but the version who ultimately chose to walk away with a sense of calm composure, seemingly untouched by the situation and truly free. This particular mental image of you, serene and liberated, is something that continues to haunt them. Because no matter how much noise they generate in their external environment or how loud they make the room around them, the profound silence left by your absence resonates within them even more powerfully, an echo they cannot escape. You see, a lack of outward reaction or communication doesn't always signify inner peace or strength. Their moments of silence aren't born of genuine power, rather, they are often a manifestation of internal panic, carefully hidden behind a composed exterior, essentially, a poker face designed to mislead. It's a form of avoidance, cleverly disguised and presented to the world as mature detachment or having simply moved on. Your silence, however, represents the true display of strength and self-possession in this dynamic. This is because your quietness isn't an act. You aren't pretending to be okay, nor are you engaging in excessive efforts to compensate for something you feel is missing or to convince anyone of your state. Your silence is authentic, and in its authenticity lies its undeniable power. You've slipped away quietly, absorbed in your own world, constantly evolving. Initially, they dismissed your silence as a sign of weakness. However, it has now become the key that exposes their own performance. Here's the interesting part, they're aware of it. They stay up late, endlessly scrolling through their feeds, fixating on your profile, questioning if you've moved on. Every time they reach for their phone and feel the silence on the other end, they can't help but feel it, even if they'd never admit it to themselves. The ones who truly didn't care wouldn't need to put on a show. Those who have genuinely moved on don't require an audience to validate their actions. But those who are still haunted by the past try to cover their pain with a cacophony of distractions. No number of carefully curated posts or status updates can mask the pain of a voice that faded away without closure. Don't be misled by their flashy highlights. Look deeper, beyond the mask. They feel it, they feel your absence. Because silence doesn't need to be broadcasted, it simply needs to be experienced. Express this sentiment in the comments right now. Their silence doesn't signify peace, mine embodies power. Speak it with sincerity. Let this serve as a reminder that even though you've distanced yourself, the person you left behind might still be clinging to your memory, no matter how much they try to act indifferent. If this resonates with you, if you've ever witnessed someone putting on a brave face while their eyes betray their true feelings, give this a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Stick around, as we're about to delve into the ultimate twist. Imagine the scenario where you become so self-sufficient that any regret they feel comes far too late. By then, you've already crafted a life that's independent of their influence. In those moments, they're the ones who are still stuck in the past, while you're evolving and growing. Believe me, they can sense every moment of your quiet strength. Point number 8, you've already claimed victory simply by moving forward. They've lost you, and now they can't even provoke a response. Friends, let's be clear on this, your success isn't defined by their thoughts of you or the way your silence gnaws at their ego. Your triumph lies in the fact that while they were still caught in the cycle of manipulation, you chose to move on. You didn't just step away from them, you stepped towards a better version of yourself. They thought they had you trapped with small gestures of attention, but now the cage they built is empty, the door wide open, and you're flying high above the things that once held you back. No more waiting, no more justifying, no more chasing after them. This journey was never about getting back at them or causing them pain. It was about liberating yourself and finding true freedom. The fact that your silence drives them crazy is a clear sign that you've grown into someone beyond their reach. They can no longer manipulate you, and they never truly deserved you. You're not reacting, checking, or hoping anymore. You've outgrown the entire game. The most powerful move you made was leaving without any announcement. You departed with dignity, peace, and your power intact. So, write this in the comments and claim it: I choose peace over performance. I choose silence over validation. Let this be a reminder that true freedom doesn't come from making noise but from choosing yourself without needing to explain. If this is your moment of rising, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because you're not just moving on, you're moving up. And no one can pull you back. You've already won. To wrap this up, my friends, remember this: your silence was never a sign of weakness. It's important to recognize that when certain people leave your life, it's not a loss on your part. Rather, they are the ones missing out on being part of your growth, healing, and inner peace journey. You have evolved into a stronger, more resilient version of yourself since they departed, and that in itself is empowering. If this message resonates with you, demonstrate your resilience by liking this post, sharing it with someone who could benefit from it, and subscribing for more insightful content on stoicism and personal transformation. Share your positive affirmations in the comments below. Remember, true strength lies in choosing silence over seeking external validation. Let your actions speak louder than words, allowing the world to witness your inner power. Embrace this moment as an opportunity for personal growth and collective elevation. Together, let's rise to new heights.